I wanted to thank the audience very much. This is a great audience. I see a lot of familiar faces. So I also wanted to thank TomTom and Paul Beyer, particularly the board of TomTom, including my family members, Susan, my wife, and my son-in-law, Alex, who serve on the TomTom board now, and the staff, because they do so much work putting this together and making it work for the betterment of our community. And TomTom stands for Tomorrow, Tomorrow. And that's exactly what we're going to be focusing on in this discussion today. We could spend a lot of time, as you all know, with all that's going on in the world and all the uncertainty that exists, talking about today's issues, but that's not what we're here to do. This session is to look ahead, to look down the road 3 to 5 years or more. And we today will have an opportunity to hear from our leaders in terms of what are they thinking about tomorrow. What are they thinking about 3 to 5 years down the road? What are they thinking about innovation? And so I would like to introduce each of them. On my far right, Jeff Richardson, who is the county executive of Albemarle County. So, Jeff has 31 years of local government experience in Virginia and in North Carolina, including 21 years in senior management, 6 years as Albemarle County executive, and he serves on the Charlottesville-Albemarle Airport Authority, the Water and Sewer Authority, among other boards. He has a Bachelor's of Science degree from University of North Carolina in Asheville and a Master's degree in Public Administration from UNC at Chapel Hill. He's also a 2003 graduate of the Senior Executive Institute at the University of Virginia. We have Sam Sanders, who's here, the city manager, who's a native of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Sanders has built a career focused on public service and commitment to impacting the lives of those who live in the communities in which he works. He and his wife Sharon moved to Charlottesville in 2021. Sam joined the city government, and his wife, Dr. Sanders, joined the faculty of Political Science Department at Virginia State University. They have 2 adult children. Sam graduated from Christopher Newport University in Newport News in 1994 with a bachelor's degree in English. And he has completed his graduate studies at Troy University, earning a master's in public administration in 2013. He also completed the Achieving Excellence program at the Harvard Kennedy School in 2020. And Jim Ryan is serving as the 9th president of the University of Virginia. Jim started in August of 2018, and working with his dedicated colleagues across the grounds, some of whom are here with us this morning, he has helped craft and secure approval of a new strategic plan for the university. It's called the Great and Good Plan. He's secured funding and approval for a new school of data science. He's secured lead gifts for the Karsh Institute of Democracy and a new performing arts center. He's publicly launched a capital campaign that has generated more than $5 billion, that's with a B, $5 billion, and it's generated that 18 months ahead of schedule. And it includes more than $1 billion in scholarships and professorships. As part of this effort to expand across the university, expand access to the university, he has announced that students from Virginia families whose families earn less than $100,000 a year would be able to attend UVA tuition-free. And those from families earning less than $50,000 a year would have tuition, room, and board covered. Among other accomplishments, that's a good applause, Ryan. Among other accomplishments, Jim has led the establishment of the UVA Northern Virginia campus, which is thriving as part of efforts to expand educational opportunity in the Commonwealth and beyond. It's helped secure the approval for a new sustainability plan and raised the minimum wage for full-time UVA employees to $15 an hour. Another applause line for those of you. And in 2021, he commissioned a university-wide committee on free expression and free inquiry, which released a statement on free expression and inquiry endorsed by the Board of Visitors. Jim also is leading an effort to create a stronger connection with the Charlottesville and Albemarle community, and he has opened the Center for Community Partnerships located in downtown Charlottesville, which he may want to talk about later on as well. So please welcome our three panelists who are here with us today. So let's jump right in. Charlottesville, or the Charlottesville area, is already emerging as a vibrant entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem. We have been recognized as one of the best places in the U.S. to start a business, and we've been recognized as a leader in the growth of venture capital for this area. So as we think about how this progresses, a question to begin with, and Jim, I'll start with you on this, is how are UVA and Albemarle County and Charlottesville looking at innovation as you plan and build this vibrant community for the future?
Well, thanks, LF, and it's great to be here with both Sam and Jeff. I'll just get started and then turn it to Sam and Jeff. And
Sure.
It's a big question, but I'll just start at a high level. I think if you want to create an ecosystem for innovation, you need to be thinking about, and you're a university, thinking about the community in which you're located and then the ecosystem within the university. So if you look around at places that have been successful, the three ingredients, and this, if you read on entrepreneurship, these are usually the things that are mentioned. It's a nice place to live. It is near or has in its community a research university, and there is capital to invest. And Charlottesville has all three of those things. And I think for Sam, Jeff, and I, one of the things that we're focused on is the very first. Like, is it a nice place to live? And it's not just, is it a pretty place to live, but how are the schools? What's the transportation like? And within the university, it's also important, I think, to have an ecosystem that allows for innovation and entrepreneurship. And I say that with as broad a definition of innovation and entrepreneurship as possible. So it's not just for profit, but it's social innovation. I'm looking at Melody Barnes and thinking about the Karsh Institute of Democracy. I expect that they will produce innovative ideas that will help bolster our democracy. And I think there, the components are that you need to have support for research, both basic and translational. You need to make it easy for faculty who are interested in commercializing their discoveries, either to get a patent or to start a venture. And that means having spaces and resources and people that make it as easy as possible to take an idea from the lab and bring it to the market, or take an idea from an institute and bring it to the public. So I think it's those two ecosystems working together. The ecosystem within a university, which is a driver of research and innovation, and then the ecosystem in which the university sits.
Thank you. Jeff?
Again, thank you to Jim and Sam for agreeing to be here today. LF, thank you for moderating. Albemarle County is a little bit different than the city. Sam's footprint is 10.5 square miles, and the county is 726 square miles. But if we take a step back from that, in our development area, which is 5% of that, it's 35 square miles. It's about 3 times the size of the city, and most of it is adjacent to the city. So we basically take the city proper and we extend it. And so we've got to have a scalpel approach at the county level for leaning hard into the right kind of economic development here that works, that takes advantage of the fact that we've got the economic engine that we've got with the university right here, and lean hard into the work that's going on in the city, recognizing that that's where people identify. They say the Charlottesville area, the greater Charlottesville area, but it is a regional economy. It's a regional economy, and we are beginning at the Albemarle County level with our economic development work to lean in hard to that. And with our recent purchase of 462 acres in the Rio 29 corridor around Ravenna Station, which employs 3,000 employees, we have gone all in on the fact that Department of Defense intelligence work aligns well with this community, with our economic development growth. It's great paying jobs. They've been there since 2002. They quietly come in and do their work every day. And a recent economic impact study shows that Department of Defense is second in our region behind the university with a $1.3 billion a year impact to our regional economy. That creates a lot of economic vibrancy. Coming out of Ravenna Station, that's about $650 million, or about half of that. And so we've got to align as a county government and support that federal work, critical intelligence work for national defense. We're fortunate to have the university here, and in that the National Security Institute was recently announced at the University of Virginia. That aligns well, the biotech work. A lot of the work that's going on at UVA Discovery Park, which is just down the road, less than a mile from Ravenna. And we've got a city and a city manager who is very interested in being a part of those conversations. And so I think we're at an amazing time right now for our work in economic development in this region as we continue really to look at that corridor up 29 that comes all the way back into the city, all the way out to Ravenna. And again, it's regional, so it's not just about really the city, the university, and the county. It also involves Greene County and looking at some key regional partners. And Sam, Jim, and I meet every 60 days. And we try to get on each other's radar. What are the things that we're working on that matter the most to us right now? And I would say that this work that we're talking about today needs to be at or near the top of the list.
Sam?
Yeah, so I have three things as well. I would say that consistent engagement is important. That meeting that Jeff just mentioned that we're having is important. One, because we know that many of you have questioned if we're meeting, and you feel like that's a sign that things are stable and normal and that we can get along. And we can. We can have conversations, and they can be tough conversations, and they'll get tougher as time goes on. But I also think that there are strategic discussions that we need to be able to have. And in that moment, be free, be open, be honest. We don't need a whole bunch of onlookers, because sometimes we need to work some things out and then bring those conversations forward. So I think we're looking for moments to do that. But then it's about the intentional collaboration. Like, what is it that comes out of those conversations that we can then align ourselves around? What can we do with those things? Transportation is the topic that we're working on right now that all three of us have found there is truly, no pun, a lane for us to work on and do some things. I think what we will do over time is to continue to come together and look for and what's next and what's next and what's next. Because the thing that we cannot miss is we do this together. This region is stronger when we are representing ourselves and the worlds that we come from, but also doing it with the sense that Charlottesville, Greater Charlottesville, UVA, we are all in this together. When it goes wrong, and it has happened, it goes wrong for all of us. So let's all just stay focused on making sure that it goes right as much of that time as we can possibly make it.
Thank you all. And it's interesting for me to learn that you all meet every 60 days. And I think that's extraordinarily important. And I'm just really pleased to hear that that's happening. There have been periods of time when the university and the county and the city haven't been communicating so well. And whenever that's the case, it seems like rumors abound and trouble follows. And so thank you all very much for doing that. I think that's really nice to learn. Jeff, back to you. You talked about Ravenna Station a little bit. I wonder if you could expand on that some, and as well as talk about any other initiatives that you see in the county or partnerships that are existing as you look ahead the 3 to 5 years that might be relevant for this conversation.
We need more private capital investment in Albemarle County. I'm in the middle of pushing the budget forward and pushing it to approval, and our budget is recommended to go up with real estate tax rate increase of 4 cents. It'll go from 85.4 to 89.4. I've talked candidly with our board and said we've got to have more private investment, more private capital investment in Albemarle County. When you look at our revenue diversification, we are 72% residential. We're 11.3% commercial and industry. For a community of our size, that 11.3% should be somewhere between 15 and 20% for a community of our size. I've talked to Sam openly about that. We've had other things. Regional transit has been at the top of the list. Affordable housing has also taken time. So we've not had as much time to talk with President Ryan and his team, but we've got to get more private capital investment into our community. We have a lot of private wealth in our community, but at 11.3%, that needs to be higher. Our team, we are in the process of updating our county's economic development strategic plan. We have gone to the community and sought feedback from stakeholders, developers, people that work with us on a regular basis, and we've got to get more nimble and more responsive, quicker on the private economic development side. It's not just putting all of our eggs in one basket with Ravenna Station and Ravenna Futures. That's big for Albemarle County, and it's big for our region, and I can talk more about that. But it's also paying attention to underperforming in small industry, light industry, commercial sites that are underperforming, that are low ROI right now, and coming up with a game plan on how we're going to do better. A very small but easy example to get your head around is the Fashion Square Mall site and the work we've done with Home Depot, who will open later this year. And that property has gone down significant in tax value over the last 9 years. And as a new heavyweight anchor tenant, we're going to see that property transform over the next 5 to 10 years. And it could include partners in that footprint that could be light industry. It could be focused on workforce development. It could be commercial retail. I don't know, but Home Depot was the right kind of anchor tenant to bring in. I could probably name 5 other sites in the county that we've got to get serious on to look for redevelopment. It could involve partnership with the city. It could be asking the university to help us in some way. But the bottom line is that my board wants that 11.3% to grow. And what that's going to do is it's going to lessen the tax burden on our nighttime residential property taxpayer. I have leaned in hard on Jim and Sam and said, we've got to pay attention on the quality of life issues in this region and make sure that we remain affordable with good paying jobs for our middle class folks who are here trying to make it work.
Sam, same question. And I think about the area and things that have happened in the fairly recent past. Companies that have emerged that were startups here that now have emerged and are more than billion-dollar corporations. I think about Willow Tree, Apex Energy, SNL Financial.
Right.
I mean, just a small community like us has had that kind of experience. And so as you look ahead and think about, the kinds of things that have happened or are going on that matter, any other specifics or examples that you might share with us?
Sure. I think you just touched on the promise of the mall. Like, all of that started right here on the mall. That's one of the things that we need to continue to support in making the right investments to continue to ensure that the downtown mall is the amenity that it is for the city of Charlottesville, because that's where the brains are. The people are there in these various offices figuring things out. We need to continue to support that, encourage that. I think what we also have to remember that as the city of Charlottesville, I'm the small player up here with these three big behemoth organizations and all that extra money that I don't get to play with. And we don't play with money, let me correct that. The money that we get to use wisely to reinvest in the various priorities that exist for our constituents. But what I do have to help everyone appreciate and recognize that, as Jeff mentioned, 10.5 square miles, we're small and we're limited, but we can still innovate. Our zoning ordinance is innovation. We made a decision to do something consciously different to add density in this area so that more people could be here, so that people who live here can stay here. All right, James, Kelly, y'all got to keep working. So those things, that's an example of something that we can continue to do. We're working in the climate space. That makes us cool and attractive. Those are positive things when you think about stability and strength of a community. We have to continue to embrace those things. But I don't have the luxury of finding donors and investors that give the city organization money, and I can only lean on all these folks that are here looking at me right now, wondering when are we going to balance this thing out so that it can be affordable for everybody who wants to be here. So we have to be very careful in how we do that. We have to manage the different things that we have as priorities. We have to be measured in our investments, and maybe a few of those in a different way than all of them at the same time, so that we can move the needle to the best of our ability. But I like to say to council and remind them, from my perspective, Charlottesville is a city that punches above its weight class. I've been saying that since I got here. We are doing things, we are unafraid, we are doing things that cities have our size and even double our size would never do. It's all happening here, and it has been. That is the meat, the character of this community. So I think for us is just to find ways to continue to support that. And as the nucleus to it all, as the city itself, I have to make sure that this is a safe, vibrant community that offers the quality of life, the fun, the things that really, really make people want to live here, so that they can innovate in these various initiatives that are happening at the BioHub and at Ravenna Futures in North Fork.
Thank you. Keep punching.
Absolutely.
Jim, I think we haven't talked much about the biotech world. Perhaps you could bring us up to date on some things happening there.
Sure. Yeah. I'm still thinking in my head about Sam saying the conversations are going to get tougher. I'm just wondering what you, what you have in mind. Those conversations.
Just be ready.
Yeah. So before I talk about biotech, just to add something to what has already been said, but and it goes to these meetings. So I lived here for 15 years as a law professor, raised our kids here, and then was gone for 5 years and came back. And from the very start of my presidency, I thought that the relationship between the university and the broader Charlottesville community, meaning Charlottesville and the surrounding counties, especially Albemarle, could be stronger than it was. And my belief then, which is still my belief now, is that whether we like it or not, our fates are intertwined. And so as goes Charlottesville and Albemarle County, so goes the university and vice versa. And that it was in our mutual interest to work together. And so I put together a group of folks from UVA and from the community that has become the President's Council on UVA Community Partnerships, and asked them to identify the key issues facing the community that we could partner on. And not surprisingly, topics like jobs and wages, affordable housing, access to medical care, access to early childhood care and education, those rose to the top, and we have been working on those issues ever since. The meetings that Sam, Jeff, and I have are a great complement to that because it goes beyond just community organizations to local governments. And so I feel like we're now in a good spot in terms of working together and identifying the issues that we can partner on, because I think that's That's the only way through this. We can bring things to the table. Community organizations can bring things to the table. Albemarle County can, and the City of Charlottesville can. And so figuring out how we can work together to tackle issues from affordable housing to education to access to medical care, I think is critical. In terms of biotech, I would say the biggest thing on the horizon is the Manning Institute for Biotechnology, which is being built at the Fontaine Research Park, which is at the far end of Fontaine near 29. It will be a 350,000 square foot research facility focused on translational research, largely focused on gene and cellular therapies, which have proven quite promising in terms of mitigating or curing diseases that have been beyond reach. The ultimate goal is that more people who are sick will be cured. So there will be a lot of clinical trials that are run out of the Manning Institute, but hosted throughout the Commonwealth. It should also be, and if you look at biotech institutes across the country, an economic engine as well. Attracting existing companies and startup companies. And the Seville BioHub is a great complement to the Biotech Institute because it's an accelerator for life sciences companies. So I think that this is going to end up being one of the more significant things that have happened in this region in the last 10 years, both in terms of bringing more cures to more people, which to me is by far the most important, but also to create an ecosystem around biotech that ought to benefit the economies of Charlottesville and Albemarle County.
And I recall being here a year ago, and this was a new idea at the time. And the panelists were not only from the University of Virginia, but from Virginia Tech and VCU and Old Dominion. That's still the case in terms of this being a statewide initiative as well.
Yeah, so there are biotech efforts across the Commonwealth, and one of the things that we're committed to is trying to collaborate where possible, or at least be in different lanes, so that we're not duplicating each other's work. And so this is being funded by private philanthropy from Paul and Diane Manning, from the state and also from the university. But the state's investment, not surprisingly, is conditioned on the idea that universities, that we work together with those who are working in the same field, or that we're at least not trying to do exactly the same thing. Too often in higher education, institutions, instead of coordinating or collaborating, simply compete, which can be a huge waste of time and a huge waste of resources. So what VCU does, what Virginia Tech does, and what we do is not exactly the same, but where we can collaborate, we will. But where another institution is already doing something, that's not going to be our first move.
And another interesting perspective is that we in Virginia have been lagging in biotech, and leaders have been to the south in Duke and Research Triangle, and to the north, Johns Hopkins, and this will allow us not only to catch up, but in some cases to leapfrog and get the very latest and very newest technologies. And with Paul Manning's involvement, I think it'll be something that for the entire state of Virginia is going to be very significant, all happening right here in our region. So let me move to maybe a broader topic, and that is this area. You've alluded to several of the attributes. Do you think there's a unique advantage, a unique selling proposition, as we say in business, about this area that allows it to accomplish many of the things that we hope to accomplish in the future? And Jim, I think you alluded to that. Maybe you could speak to that as well.
So I think Sam's exactly right that Charlottesville punches above its weight. I would say that about the whole region. And I think we have a huge advantage, but it is like the goose that laid the golden egg. We need to be really careful about growth, I think, because that's what could kill the area in some ways. So it's this very fine balance, I think, in terms of the future. So, I mean, there are very few places like Charlottesville on the East Coast. And I know this because my wife and I went to law school here, and when we graduated, we were thinking, let's find a place on the East Coast north of Charlottesville that is similar to Charlottesville. And the only place that came close was Burlington, Vermont. Literally, that's it. So if you think about the size of it, it is big enough to host all sorts of entertainment, great music, great restaurants. You have access to great sports because UVA sports across a lot of sports are great. At the same, no, I won't go into that. That's a whole nother panel. At the same time, it's an easy place to live. And you have access to the outdoors. And there are not many places like this, and Richmond's an hour away, and DC is 2 hours away. So I would say that gives us a huge advantage. But what worries me is how do you manage the growth that comes from the economic development and the economic opportunity? And I'll tell you one story and then stop, which was both encouraging but also a warning sign. So there is a startup now in the Discovery Park, which is up in North Fork, which is a big chunk of land right near the airport. Just by show of hands, how many of you have heard of it? Oh, okay, that's good. I feel like it's finally gaining momentum. It's been a while trying to get companies to locate there. So there's a startup there that's led by someone who started 3 different companies in Silicon Valley. And he wanted to come here to start this one. And I was just talking to him and I said, why? And he said, well, Silicon Valley's just gotten so crowded and so overpriced that, you know, you're in traffic. It's hard to get a doctor's appointment. Private schools are impossible to get into. Public schools are so-so. And so it makes you realize that if you're going to attract these businesses, you have to retain what makes Charlottesville, Charlottesville, or you might be killing the goose that laid the golden egg.
Jeff, any thing further on that?
Well, at the end of the day, it really all boils down to wineries. That just makes everything go a little better. No, in all sincerity, the first thing I would say is that when Jim talks about what's special about here, and it's hard to find on the East Coast, I want to go back and again lean hard into data, and that is, you know, we have geographically a big county. 726 square miles is big. You start on the north end and go all the way to the bottom, and it's well over an hour. Now, I want you to just tell yourself, 95% of the county does not have access to water and sewer. Growth follows water and sewer. Without water and sewer, you don't grow. So we've got growth governors on this county. We have growth governors on this county. If we had access to water and sewer all through the county, and we don't and we won't, but if we did, 2 hours from DC would be 2 to 3 times the size that we are right now. We would, because density and growth is driven by access to water and sewer. Okay, 95% of the county. So back in the early 80s, the county said, we're going to put the most severe growth governors on this county that we can put on our county, and that is we're going to severely limit water and sewer availability in the county. So that's why you can drive 10 to 15 minutes. We can get in our car right now and drive 10 to 15 minutes out and all of a sudden come upon a 150-acre farm, and you go, why has this not been scooped up and developed with tract homes? It's because they don't have access to water and sewer. They're in the rural area. Okay, so that's the first thing. That really makes us unique. I've not found anywhere else, and I've not, driven all over the East Coast, but very few communities have that in terms of what I would call restrictive growth. So what that means is inside that 5% in the county, that most of it leans into the city, it's adjacent to the city. We've got to be super smart about highest and best use. And in development areas, you need to see density. In the development area, you need to see density. And what that means is we've got to have good infrastructure to handle that density. Jim and Sam mentioned regional transit. We need a stronger regional transit system that better serves the urban area of the county. And then you're going to begin to see some relief on the public infrastructure that is associated with that. So I believe heavily in the decisions that were made in the early 80s to keep this county, the rural areas of our county rural, but it really, at this moment in time of where we're at, it really puts a lot of pressure on the city and the county to make good decisions about where development should go and what it should look like and how we maximize that for tax-based density and to be able to address as many of the issues and opportunities that we have. It requires Sam and I to be hand in glove on a lot of stuff. And then when we're with the university, we have to pick and choose because the university is huge. The university is 15 times the size of Sam and I put together. And ever so often I have to politely remind them of that because we're just small compared to the university. So we have to pick and choose what we talk to the university about, but trying to remind and convince them that how the university grows and where they go and what we do affects the city and the county in a big way because of the limitations we've got with our land development.
Sam?
So now you see what our conversations are like. And they're only getting harder. But what I'll say is vibrancy means something different to everybody. Like people are trying to figure out what that word really means. I think most of us can come up with the characteristics of you want to be comfortable, you want to enjoy where you live, you want to feel safe, you want to have choices. The options are important and the variation of those options. Charlottesville is a beautiful place. There's no question about that. There's a lot of great things to do outside. I love it for that reason. I probably should get out there more. There are many, many people who just keep coming here. They just keep coming here. Like, I don't really have to do anything. They just keep showing up. If we can keep things stable, then that'll continue to happen. Like when that went wrong in 2017, and I really like to remind people that's something that happened. That's not who we are. We can fix that. We can change that. But part of that changing that is being stable, being consistent, being willing to go into some of the harder conversations and dig up some of the things that may be challenging. Remembering that we're not going to be perfect. There is no place like that. So we have to deal with the things that are our challenges. Affordable housing is a huge challenge. Housing availability, period, is a huge challenge. Until we can get our arms around that, we're going to continue to lose the population of people who really want to be here. They have no choice when we price them out, and it is naturally happening. We don't really have to do much. It's happening on its own. Neighborhoods are changing. This whole city is changing in that sense. It can change for good, but we've got to be deliberate and we've got to be actionable and intelligent about some of the choices that we make. I have to grow. If we're going to continue to be the city that punches above its weight class, I need more money. That's just to be perfectly frank. That's the only way to do it. It is more expensive to do all these things. Council adopted its budget on Monday. It increased a little over 5%, about $13, $14 million. Most of it went to infrastructure. That's where the money is needing to go. As Jeff referenced, that nighttime population, those are the people who live here. Those are people who are paying the taxes. Those are the people that stop me every chance they get to say, what are you going to do about that? But it's all the many more people who come in during the daytime that put that strain and that need where it has to go. I still have schools that I need to update. I still have climate priorities. I still have wealth building priorities for low-income populations in the city. I still have a housing crisis. So all of that takes balance, and we've got to measure those things, and we've got to be creative about what we do. And I think that's the value of the conversation that we can have. We start putting things on the table that we have not talked about. We start putting things on the table where we start to say, you know what? Can we dig into that a little bit more and help me understand that so that then we can figure out where to go? The regional transportation conversation is a great example of just in the past year. It hasn't even been a whole year since we three sat down and started conversations, and we are linked on we can figure something out. And as long as we can agree that we can figure something out, there's a reason to keep coming back to the table. And I think that's what we have to keep reminding ourselves of.
Thank you. So when Paul Byer started this conference this morning, he said there was one question that he wanted to be sure that was asked of all of our panelists throughout TomTom. And I think there's a slide maybe that could put that behind us. And the question is this, and really it has to do with all of you, the audience, and it has to do not only with the audience, but people who are not here, but who care about the subject that we're talking about. And we have a vibrant nonprofit community, we have entrepreneurs, we have investors, we have leaders, we have many people in our community. And the question is, what are the partnerships and collaborations you'd like to see develop to advance the region? And that is, what would these leaders like to see that you all might be able to do that would help make sure that we reach some of the goals that we've talked about here for the future? So let's see, Sam, may I start with you?
Sure. Let me just say that I'm an optimistic person. It's hard sometimes to stay that way. There's a lot going on, a lot of work to do. But one thing that we can do is we can appreciate that we are not the worst of the worst, and we should stop claiming that in many conversations the way that we do. We have challenges, we have work to do, but I think we can work on getting past some of that, and that will just kind of lift us a little bit more and move us further along. We tend to think that we're not innovating enough and we're not helping people enough. We're doing a lot of stuff. We really are, and I think we should appreciate and applaud ourselves for that, because there are a lot of communities that are not doing this. There are a lot of conversations where I would not be permitted by my council to have the kinds of conversations that I have because they're not interested. They're just not interested in going there. And we're not afraid of having those conversations here. And I think that's a positive thing. That's what makes us special. I think it's also important for us to just remember that we've got to do it together. We're bringing fireworks back this summer, and we made that happen. Like, that's not huge. It's not a whole lot of money. I made Chris Engel do some work to get everybody on the same page to make it happen. But the three of us made a conscious decision. Yes, let's do that. We're doing it again next year. Downtown Mall turns 50 years old next year. Did y'all know that? There's a big party we're trying to coordinate right now. Monticello is going to be a part of the bigger conversation about Virginia 250. All of that's happening the same weekend next year. That could be something pretty special, right? We've got to work on things like that. Even the small things matter. And I guess that's really what I put out there is we have to be open. We have to be willing. You come to the table, bring everything to the table, and you walk away with something getting done. I think that's really the message I like to send as many people around here as possible.
Yep.
I'll probably be the one in the group that's the most narrow-minded today, but I mean, the focus that I have right now is economic development. As we do strategic planning for this community, what I tend to remind our board very politely in the community is that we will run out of money before we run out of opportunities and we run out of problems. Really, when you do strategic planning and you're looking 3 to 5 to 7 years out, whatever that means to you, you're really trying to anticipate what are the changes that are going to occur here, if not for our work that we need to be involved in. And we're trying to identify the biggest opportunities and the biggest problems that we face. And that should drive a lot of the conversations at our level, at the CEO level. But again, I'll go back to economic vibrancy, which is the health and vibrancy of your local economy. And I think we've got to work harder there in our community. And we need the University of Virginia at the table with us as a catalyst for Sam and I. One of the biggest issues is workforce development in this community, and there's a lot of workforce development efforts that are going on. We learn about stuff almost every week about things that are happening, but there needs to be a thread through that, recognizing the PVCC graduates, the University of Virginia graduates that come through every year, and how we better harness that horsepower that's coming through the community, that a lot of these young people have a desire to stay here. And we just, I think, need to work harder with our collective efforts and our collaboration. I'll tell you this, I think good leaders are more interested than interesting. And every conversation I have with President Ryan starts out with a question. And it's not a question about the university, it's a question about the county. And I appreciate that very much. And with Sam, I have a city manager that every call I make to him, we're not 60 seconds in until he goes, what can I do? How can I help? So I'm around some really good leaders in this community, and that forces Albemarle County to be on its game. And I'd be remiss, and Sam will nod, that this really is magnified at the elected level. We have a mayor and a chair that meets on a 30-day basis. They have vice chairs and vice mayors involved. So these 4 elected officials are meeting every 30 days to talk about biggest opportunities, biggest problems. And then there's a connection back to the city manager and I. So I mean, is it perfect? No. But is it working for the betterment of the community? I believe so. And so I'll end with that.
Jim?
So if I heard you correctly, Jeff, you just said I'm not interesting, which I appreciate.
Me either for them.
Maybe both of us, yeah. So I'll give you just a couple of concrete examples about partnerships, and we've talked about this already, but I would think over the next year or 5 years, 2 areas of partnership are around biotech, which we talked about, but also around national security. And that will happen, I think, physically on both sides of 29 North, both sides of 29 rather. In addition, I think continuing to partner, and this is now UVA, Charlottesville, and Albemarle County, around issues that we have in common. So regional transportation is one. But more generally, and I think we're laying the groundwork for this, I would love to see this collaboration continue, but on a foundation of an entrepreneurial mindset. That is to say, like for issues that affect all of us, that we go into it thinking, okay, what can we do to solve this? With some confidence that we can solve it, with the confidence that we're going to bring different things to the table, but together we will be able to address these issues and address them in as smart and creative a way as possible. And I think rather than one particular project, because things come up all the time, having that mindset and that partnership and that approach to issues is going to matter more to the future of this region than any one specific project. And like Sam, I'm optimistic as well, and I think we're on a good path.
So I have been a bad moderator. I was supposed to allow time for questions, and the lights are flashing saying you need to get off the stage. So we will be here. I know folks have to leave. I'll be here. If anyone has a thought or a question, please come up afterwards. And I just wanted to end by thanking our panel for doing such a great job and sharing all this information today. Thank you.
LF and panel. Thank you again. That was a wonderful conversation. And since we didn't have time for questions, what I ended the last panel with was an invitation to those assembled, because you are the leaders of the community. I don't know if you noticed when you mentioned who knows about North Fork, and a lot of people know about North Fork. So this is the room of folks that are going to do the work and build the future. So if you are involved, please write me and write Tom, and I would love to assemble feedback, ways that you are actively building things or are contributing to this conversation. Please share them with us. So that's point one, and I would gladly share that with this panel. And point two is what I heard from Jim and from everybody was this idea that we have a unique and beautiful place, and we have to be careful and strategic about the culture and the placemaking and the beauty of Charlottesville and Albemarle. And so I was curious, and this is not something you need to respond to now, but I wonder if one of the next Civic Futures gatherings is around just that topic of placemaking, of how our city can be both innovative and beautiful and grow for everyone's benefit. So I would say I would just open that up. And I don't know if you have any response to that or not, but
Yes.
Again, thank you, panel. Thank you, Jeff, Jim, and Sam, and LF. And thank you all for being such a great audience.